Welcome to our final SEC baseball season preview, brought to you by Southern Sports Gumbo. We are wrapping up with the Ole Miss Rebels tonight. Kevin, get us started here.
So Ole Miss, they have been a consistent team under Coach Mike Bianco, the all-time winner in baseball. There won a national championship a few years ago. Was in a tough spot at the time, but he continues to win, and they had a solid season last year. I think they've got a team that again can be solid this year. So let's just kind of break their team down. I'm going to start with again what I think is their strongest part of their team, and that would be their catcher to infield part. If you look at Judd Udermark is going to play third base. That's who they've got kind of slated there. Hit 294, right around 20 home runs last year. Did strike out quite a bit, but hits for power and will produce runs. Braden Randall's going to be the shortstop. He hit 286 last year. Young guy though, so I expect him becoming an everyday player. He'll probably elevate. I expect him to hit around 300. Dom Decker, the transfer from Murray State, hit 351 there last year, and he'll play second base. Interesting thing there, Murray State beat Ole Miss in Oxford, and I guess it impressed Dom Decker enough to decide, hey, I'll just stay right here and play my next year. So, but he'll be a good player at second. He'll set the table. I would expect him to bat in the top part of their order for runs for guys like Udermark and Will Furness, who's their first baseman, hit 305, and he brings some power. He'll hit 10 to 15 home runs. And then Austin Foley, their catcher, 256, 21 home runs, 648 slugging percentage. Again, strikes out a little bit, but he will produce runs. You go from there, you go to their outfield. To me, this is a question mark that they have talent, but they need these guys to kind of elevate their game. I'm going to start with the player they bring back that I like a lot, and that's Hayden Federico. As a freshman last year, early, he hit around 270, 280. And like a lot of freshmen in the SEC, he tailed off towards the end of the season and ended around 240. Still had a good on base percentage, but he's a good baseball player. He was the number four player out of the state of Louisiana 2 years ago. I think he'll elevate his game in his sophomore year. I expect him to hit around 280, 10 home runs, and be a solid player for him. And they need that. Then they have Daniel Pacella, the transfer to play center field. Good player. He hit over 300 last year. I expect him to bring his game, and he'll be a solid player for him. Tristan Becerra is a transfer from Clemson. He hit 227 last year. I'm not sure I'm too high on him in the outfield. There's a lot of people that project him to start, but honestly, I think this will be one that somewhere else. I think either Owen Pano or even possibly Cannon Golden, the freshman from Buford, Georgia. I expect them to one of them two or somebody else on their team to end up as a starter out in the outfield with Pacella and Federico. And then you go from there to their pitching staff. And they pieced their staff together last year, and I think it's very similar this year. Hunter Elliott's their Friday night guy. He was good last year. I think you can expect him to be solid. So no issues with him. He'll give them a solid 6, 7 innings and win his share of games. True Friday night starter. Then you go into their Saturday and Sunday starters. Cade Townsend, who is a talented pitcher, was a freshman last year. So they expect a lot out of him, and he's currently their Saturday projected starter. His ERA was over 5 last year, so they do need him to step up and get a little better. And then their Sunday starter right now is Will Liebert, transfer from Missouri. I'll be honest, I think that's there's an opportunity there for someone to step forward. One guy in their bullpen that I like that I think they'll use him as a middle inning guy to extend a game and get a win if they're ahead, and that's Walker Hooks. I expect him to come in fifth, sixth inning of a Friday or Saturday game if they're in the lead, try to take him 3 to 4 more innings, and get his share of strikeouts. And then Landon Waters is another pitcher that they have out of their bullpen that I think can pitch and do well for them. And that to me kind of summarizes their team. Now, here's the challenge that they have. I think they've got a good, solid team. I wouldn't put their roster in the top half of the SEC. The challenge is, though, they play one of the toughest schedules in the SEC. They have on their schedule, they have LSU, Texas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Alabama, Florida. So they don't play Missouri. They don't play South Carolina. They don't play Oklahoma. The teams that we thought kind of be on the bottom part of the conference. They play every team on their schedule is a potential NCAA team. So I even though I think they have a solid team, I look at that schedule and I go that this could be a real challenge and could be tough for them. I could see them finishing 12-18 simply because of the schedule they play. I'm going to go with 13, 17, maybe 14, 16 at the top end of it, strictly because of the tough schedule they play. I, I like their roster. I like their starting pitchers for Saturday, Sunday, and then hooks out of the bullpen. I just don't know though with the schedule. I just see a lot of series that they're going to lose 2 out of 3 in that group. DMAC, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll start with the schedule. I'm right there with you. You know, they missed the bottom 3 teams in the league this year. You know, going on the road to Texas, going to Arkansas are really brutal. I could see them getting swept in both of those. I do like the way they match up with Tennessee with their power bats, though. So I've got them at 13 and 17 also, and I really only see the ceiling of this team as 15 and 15, and wouldn't rule out a 12 and 18 conference record. I do want to talk about a neutral site game that they play every year against Mississippi State that does not count towards the conference standings. So they play 4 games against, you know, a top 3 or 4 team in the nation. If, you know, you look at their series, they play number 2, number 3, and number 4 this year in series. So really tough schedule for them. You know, it almost looks like they got the complete opposite of what Texas got. From a team standpoint, though, a few players that I really like this year. I'm with you. I like Federico a lot. I thought he showed a lot of promise last year as a freshman. You know, stole 12 bases too, so he's got some speed. You know, their power bats though are gonna have to cut down on the strikeouts. You look at guys like Furness, Foley, and Udermark, and they combined for let's see, 225 strikeouts last year at the plate. So, you know, Furness and Udermark are seniors. Foley's a redshirt junior behind the plate. You know, going into senior year, I don't know how much you're able to cut that back, but they'll need to find a way. My favorite addition from the transfer portal, though, is Dom Decker, like you mentioned, the Murray State transfer. Walked 47 times last year to 40 strikeouts. You know, doesn't have much power. You know, didn't hit a home run last year, but hit 18 doubles last year and 48 RBIs. If they can get him on the bases for the guys like Foley and Udermark, he's going to score a bunch of runs for them this year. So, you know, geez, 12 and 18 should get you into postseason play. I think 13 and 17, you're a lock for postseason play. You know, this team's better than what their record's going to show. I'll say that, with the tough draw they drew this year. So you know, don't have super high expectations, you know, especially with their pitching staff. I know you talked a good bit about it. But you look at a guy like Will Libbert, the transfer from Missouri. You know, he had a 6 ERA last year, walked 33 guys in 53 innings. Cade Townsend, I think, is a guy who can take a big step forward. And then somehow Hunter Elliott's only a redshirt junior. He can come back for one more year if he wanted. After striking out 102 last year and walking 40 through 85 and 2/3, he's going to be their key is can they pick up enough Friday night wins And even some of the tough teams that they play this year don't have a true Friday night guy. So they may be able to surprise in that aspect some. What are your thoughts, Sweets?
I like Decker coming in from Murray State. Listen, anybody who can get on base, who can walk 50 times and strike out 40 times, you want him at the top of your lineup, setting the plate for the guys behind him. It's not going to help if these guys are striking out at the rate that they did prior years. But I think that these guys are going to score a lot of runs, and I think that Decker's going to be setting the table for them quite a bit. As far as their pitching goes, that's where it gets a little iffy for me. Not to drag it out, I think they're 12 win, 12 and 18, 13 and 17, healing 10 and 20 floor.
Yeah, we were kind of already 12, 18, 13, 17, maybe 14, 16. Again, we talked about the tough conference schedule. They also really play a tough non-conference schedule too. They play in the Houston Classic at the end of February, 1st of March, and in that they play Baylor, Ohio State, and Coastal Carolina. So three really good teams there. They also have two games with Southern Miss and a game with Murray State during their non-conference season. So that's 5, 6 quality. You mentioned the Mayor's Classic, which is Mississippi State. So that's six out of conference games that are going to be really challenging games too. So they've got one of the toughest schedules in college baseball, if not the toughest. So I think the schedule will be challenging for them. That being said, like you said, DMAC, if you go 12 and 18 with this schedule, you probably deserve to be in the SEC. I don't know that you can get to 40, but again, let's say you get 35, 36 wins with this schedule in the regular season, you deserve to be in the tournament. They definitely will be battle tested with what they play.
Yeah, one thing on Mike Bianco before we wrap up. He was a former LSU player, coached under Skip for a while. He's such a class act. Last season when the matriarch of LSU baseball, Miss Sandy Burtman, passed away, her funeral was midweek in March during the season, and you had Mike Bianco and Paul Maneri both fly into town for that to Baton Rouge when they had games the night before and the day after. So, class act for Mike Bianco, a guy that I think highly of, both on and off the field. Won a championship for Ole Miss a couple years ago, has really taken that program similar to, their football coach who left, to heights they would never see without him. So shout out to Bianco for just being a good guy too.
Absolutely.
Well, that is a wrap on Ole Miss baseball. This is our last preseason preview. We'll be coming on Sunday with some recaps of basketball and baseball. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, tell your friends and family about us, and we'll be bringing SEC baseball content all year long.